Let's do it. Okay. Hey, everybody. This is Jeff here from Hale Education Group. I am here to talk to you today about the SAT and the ACT. First, a little bit about myself. I graduated college in 2006 from NYU. I have a degree in linguistics and languages. I have been a teacher for 11 years now. This November will be the 11th year. It's crazy. But I've been doing standardized tests for 7 of those. I've done SAT, ACT, GRE, GMAT, math, and verbal. So yeah, I'm going to tell you guys about the differences between these tests, but today we're going to focus exclusively on the math section. Last week we did ACT science, and today I'm going to talk to you about what makes the math on the SAT different from the math on the ACT. We're going to do some sample problems from the ACT math. We're going to do some sample problems from SAT math. And yeah, and then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we can help you prepare for the SAT or the ACT. So what are these guys? Very quick, brief overview. What are the SAT and ACT? Well, they're both undergraduate admissions tests. Every college and university in the U.S. and Canada accepts both SAT and ACT without preference. So let's talk a little bit about the SAT. Your SAT test is 4 sections. You got a reading section, then you got a writing and language section, which is grammar, and then you have 2 math sections. One is a calculator section and one is no calculator. Then you have an optional essay. The ACT test here is an English section, which is grammar. That's identical to the writing and language section on the SAT. Then you got a math section, which you can use your calculator for the entire time. And then you have a reading and a science section. Those are all scored from 1 to 36, and your composite score is the average. And you have an essay, again, optional, scored from 2 to 12. So, big question, should I take the SAT or the ACT? Well, what you should do is take both practice tests. Take a practice test for the SAT, then take a practice test for the ACT. See which one you score better on, and then prepare for that exam. A lot of students, well, actually no, a lot of parents ask me, should I make my son or daughter prepare for both the SAT and the ACT? That horrifies me. I can't imagine asking a student to prepare for both of these exams. That's just monstrous. So today, yes, as I mentioned, I'm going to talk to you about the SAT math versus the ACT math. So how are these math sections different? Well, let me give you guys a brief overview. The SAT has a no calculator section. You get 25 minutes to do 20 questions. 15 of those questions are multiple choice, and 5 of those questions are grid-ins. Grid-ins are like free response questions, FRQs. They don't give you any answer choices, and you just have to solve a math problem, and whatever you get when you solve it, you write that in. Now that scares students sometimes. Students like to solve a math problem and then like look at the answer choices and go, okay, good, my answer's there. When there are no answer choices, sometimes that causes students to panic. So that's one difference between the SAT and ACT. The second math section on the SAT is a calculator section. You get 55 minutes to do 38 questions. 30 of them are multiple choice and 8 are your grid-ins, your FRQs, your student-produced responses. Now, ACT, you get a calculator for all the questions. You get 60 minutes, 60 questions, and they're all multiple choice. So it's straightforward. If you do the math, you'll notice you get 83 seconds per question for the SAT, and you get 60 seconds per question for the ACT. More specifically, I believe that the no calculator section on the SAT is like 1 minute and 15 seconds, whereas the calculator section is like 1 minute and 25 seconds. So it's an average. But you get more than a minute. That's the point. And that's an important point. We'll talk about that in a minute. Both the SAT and the ACT arrange their questions in a loose order of difficulty. And you can see what that means here. I've illustrated that. Take the SAT no calculator section here. You'll see that questions 1 through 15 are your multiple choice questions. And they start out easy, and they get hard. So question 15 here, it's going to be a hard question. But the order of difficulty resets. You'll notice that when you get to question like 16, which is your first student-produced response, this is your first written question, that's where the questions kind of get easy again. So this is a very basic tip that I can give students. If you're doing questions 13, 14, 15 on the no calculator section, and you're struggling, well, stop and move on to the grid-ins. Do 16 or 17, do 18. Those questions are easier. And this is key, every question on both tests, every question is just worth 1 point. You don't get extra points for doing hard questions. You can see the math calculator section here. This strategy is even more robust because once you hit questions 28, 29, 30, they're going to be really tough. And if you just skip them and move on to 31 or 32 and 33, you can do some easier questions. You can see the ACT is much more straightforward. It's just straight 1 to 60. Now, that being said, this order of difficulty is not 100% accurate. Now, is question 10 on the no calculator section at the SAT, for instance? Is that question going to be easier than question 11? Maybe, maybe not. But what's definitely true, for example, is that question number 1 is going to be easier than question number 15. Okay. I just want to pause at this point and say if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to ask them right now. Oh, okay, good. Let's talk about this slide. This is a breakdown of all the math that's tested on the SAT. So let's look at this in a little more detail. Let's take a look at Heart of Algebra and what you're asked to do here. The Heart of Algebra asks you to solve linear equations. It asks you to solve inequalities. And this is mostly your Algebra 1 topic, stuff you learn freshman year of high school. Problem solving and data analysis is ratios, proportions, percentages, probability. This is your basic arithmetic. This is pre-algebra stuff. I put basic in quotes here because just because it's basic doesn't mean that it's easy. I can take math concepts that you learned in 7th grade and make them just ridiculously hard. So just because it's basic algebra doesn't mean that it's not difficult. Passport to advanced math is quadratics, nonlinear functions. You got to solve them, you got to graph them, you got to understand the properties of them. And this is your advanced math. This is the Algebra 2 stuff. This is probably the things that, if you're a high school student, you've most recently taken. You're probably pretty familiar with it. Now take a look at this last category, additional topics. There are only 6 questions here. But this category covers everything from area and volume, lines, angles, triangles, circles, and the unit circle and trig functions. That's so much material. It's Geometry 1, it's pre-calculus and trigonometry, but it's very few questions. And this is one of the key difficulties of the SAT. When the SAT wants to make a really hard question, they often pick from this huge pool. Why? Because most students have studied all the Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 topics. But there's just so much material inside additional topics that it's tough for a student to learn all of the material. Now, I'll tell you what I mean by that. When I teach my SAT course, I focus on the concepts that you're guaranteed to see. And in the first 8 or 10 classes, I'm like, you will see this material, guaranteed. But then there comes a point where I have to teach material, and it's like, will this be on the test? Possibly. So you're going to spend all this time learning this stuff, but it might not appear. So that's the bad thing about this additional topic section. Okay, let's talk a little bit about ACT math here. What I want to talk about is what is on the ACT, but not on the SAT. What I usually tell students, or parents really, is that the ACT math is like an Olympic-sized swimming pool that's only like 3 feet deep. But the SAT math is like a really tiny pool that's 40 feet deep. The ACT has a wide variety of topics, but you only have to have surface level knowledge. The ACT tests a very small pool of topics, but you have to know those topics in such detail. So what is on the ACT that is not on the SAT? Well, starting off with number properties, divisibility, fractions and decimals. The SAT has topics devoted specifically to these concepts, and the SAT does not. Elementary algebra, which is like exponents and stuff, SAT and ACT, they all test that stuff. Intermediate algebra, the SAT doesn't test matrices or functions or even number lines. Should have underlined that. In coordinate geometry, the SAT does not test distance and midpoint or transformations. The SAT doesn't test other polygons or 3D geometry. And the SAT does not test your inverse trig functions like cotangent, secant, and cosecant, nor do they test graphing of trig functions. What I want you guys to notice here is that plane geometry, plane geometry and trigonometry, you can see they make up 14 and 4. So 18 questions out of 60, that's about 30%. These correspond to the additional topics on the previous slide, which the SAT only has 6, 10% of the SAT. But it's 30% on the ACT. Okay. So the long and short of it is, the SAT and the ACT test much of the same content, but they test it in a different way. So now is the point where we're going to do a couple of sample problems that hopefully will illustrate the differences between the test. Okay, so how do the SAT and ACT test the same concept, but in a different way. Let me give you an example. The ACT might ask you a question like this. What is the value of the expression? Now, these vertical lines here stand for absolute value. So this question says, what is the absolute value of -3 plus the absolute value of 5 minus 12? So first step, when we subtract 5 and 12, we get -7. Now, absolute value takes whatever's inside the absolute value bars and just makes it positive. So the absolute value of -3 is +3. So now it's +3 minus the absolute value of -7. There's 3 minus 7 is -4. That's it. Yes, the ACT just says, show me you know this. Now, the SAT might ask you a crazier question like this. For what value of x is the expression, the absolute value of x minus 1 plus 2, equal to 1? So, whoa, they're asking us for a lot here. They want to know when does the absolute value of x minus 1 plus 2 equal 1? If you subtract 2 to both sides of this equation, you get this, the absolute value of x minus 1 equals -1. Well, if you know your properties of absolute value, you know that the left side of this equation will always be positive, which means there is no value of x that satisfies this equation. So you can see the ACT is like, okay, just solve this and show me you know it. Whereas the SAT is like, hey, how well do you know this topic? Prove it to me. Let's do some more. Here's a functions problem on the ACT. It says, if the f of x equals 3x plus 7 squared, then what is the f of 1? Easy. We just plug 1 in for x, and we get 3 times 1 plus 7, the whole thing squared. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 plus 7 is 10. And 10 squared is 100. Halas. It's 100. That's easy. Basic, straightforward math from the ACT. Check out how the SAT tests that same concept, functions. This question reads, for the function g defined above, a is a constant and the g of 4 equals 8. So what is the value of g of -4? Let's see. I know that if I have the g of 4 equals 8, that means that 8 is my g of x here. I'm going to plug that in here. 4 is my x value, so I'm going to plug that in there. So now we have to evaluate this equation. Well, let's see, 4 squared is 16, so that gives us 8 equals 16a plus 24. Let's subtract 24 to both sides of this equation, and we get -16 equals 16a. Now we just divide 16 to both sides of this equation, and we get that a is -1. There it is, answer choice A. I'm sorry, answer choice C. So let's pick C and move on. Wait a minute. Big mistake students make. They do not RTFQ. RTFQ stands for read the question. It means read the full question. The question's asking for the value of g of -4. Ah, okay. So let's go back to the original equation and let's replace a with negative 1. So I'm going to go back to the original equation and replace a with negative 1. I want to evaluate the g of negative 4, which means I'm going to replace my x with negative 4. And now let's evaluate. Negative 4 squared is 16. Negative 1 times 16 is negative 16. Negative 16 plus 24 is 8, and the g of 4 is 8. Bam. Okay, so you can see the SAT is a little bit more involved. I'm not saying that the ACT never asks you complex questions. I'm just saying that the ACT has a lot of questions that I call plug and chug questions, where it's like, just do it, show me you know this. Whereas the SAT tries to throw you curveballs all the time. Like, oh, you think you know this? Ha! How about that? So if you're like a good problem solver and you like solving puzzles and like you appreciate that, gotcha, then SAT might be better for you. But if you just like, you just know all the math and you're just like, please just give me an opportunity to show you that I know all this math, take the ACT. Last concept I want to go over is exponents. Now here's how the ACT might ask an exponents question. Let's check it out. Given that f equals cd cubed, f equals 450, and d equals 10, what is the value of c? Okay, well, let's just replace f with 450, and let's replace my d with 10. 10 squared. Oh, you know what? This should actually be 10 cubed. Now, what's 10 cubed? 10 cubed is 1,000. So this means 450 equals 1,000c. Now, if we divide 1,000 to both sides of this equation, it means we have to move the decimal 3 times to the left. So the answer is going to be 0.450, which is answer choice F. Now let's take a look at how the SAT might ask a similar problem. And let's read this one. If 3x minus y equals 12, what is the value of 8 to the x over 2 to the y? Well, way more complicated. Well, let's see what we can do here. We can okay, we've got 8x over here, 8 to the x. We could rewrite that as, we can rewrite the integer 8 as 2 to the 3rd power. So this becomes 2 to the 3rd power to the x power. It becomes 2 to the 3x power. If you know your properties of exponents, if you bring an exponent to the power of another exponent, you multiply. So it's 3 times x. Now let's rewrite the expression 8 to the x over 2 to the y. We can write that as 2 to the 3x over 2 to the y. Now, if you divide these bases, you can subtract the exponents, which means it's 2 to the 3x minus y. Now, I know from the original equation that 3x minus y is 12, which means 2 to the 3x minus y is equal to 2 to the 12. Answer choice A. All right. So, How is COVID-19 affecting standardized testing? Big question. I get asked a lot. The long and short of it is the SAT and ACT are trying to adapt to computer-based testing. And in the fall, they're going to try to institute an at-home SAT and an at-home ACT test. I have read some articles from some colleges that say they will not accept those at-home test scores. There's some pushback from colleges saying there's equity issues. Not everybody has a computer. There's cheating issues. People might try to cheat on these exams. So there's a lot of anxiety. These test dates I have up here are the current SAT and ACT test dates that we know so far. So this is what we know. Let's see. The last session I gave, somebody asked me for some free resources, so I thought I would post those up here to let everybody know. So yeah, you can take a screenshot, check out some of these blogs, some of these books. That is, oh, that's almost it. How can Hale help? Well, if you're interested in preparing for these standardized tests, one thing that we offer for free is a diagnostic test. And now we recommend that you take one full-length SAT and one full-length ACT, and then we can compare your scores and make a recommendation on which test is better for you. We have an 11-page, highly detailed score report that comes with each diagnostic test. That can help you make a determination, or you can sit with a tutor like me and I can go over the tests with you for free and talk about which test is best for you. We offer group classes. We're going online for the time being. I currently have an online ACT class with 14 students in it. I never thought that that would ever happen. I like to keep class numbers low, but there was a lot of demand. And I'm just so surprised that we saw that much interest. But then again, I shouldn't be surprised because students are so familiar with technology that taking an online class where we have this interaction, it's face-to-face, is not, it's not unfamiliar to students. It's not something that particularly bothers them. So yeah, we do private classes. We have private tutor. Sorry, we do group classes. We have private tutoring. We have our own textbook. Yeah, we're the best. So let me know if you're interested in taking a free practice test or asking me questions about the SAT and ACT. Here's my email address, everybody. Now there are a couple people asking some questions here. So I have one question from an anonymous person asking, compared to SAT and ACT, how much are IGCSEs and A-level qualifications weighted in the USA? Great question. Now, your college application is basically 5 components. Your SAT and ACT score and your GPA, which is basically a numeric value about how well you did in classes in high school. Those are your IGCSE grades and your A-level grades. Those are the 2 quantitative aspects of your college application. Different colleges assign different weightings to each of these 5 components. So the question, how much are they weighted, will vary depending on the college. Just for your information, guys, the 3 other components of your college application are your application essays, your letters of recommendation, and your extracurricular activities. I usually tell students that your grades, your quantitative components are the gatekeeper. They will keep colleges from looking at your application, or they will, make colleges look at your application, but they will not get you into college. That's what your extracurriculars, that's where your letters of recommendation and your essays come in. So unfortunately, I can't give you an exact answer as to how they're weighted, but they are important. Generally speaking, the grades that you get in high school are going to be way more important than an SAT or ACT grade. Colleges, because think about it, your GPA, the how well you do in high school is a reflection of 4 years of work. SAT and ACT can be learned in 8 weeks, and it's just 1 3-hour test. There's no comparison. Another person asks, which colleges have released info saying they will not accept the online SAT and ACT test? That's a great question. Off the top of my head, I just don't remember which university said they wouldn't take the test. Let me see if I can remember. I can't remember. I read it in the Chronicle of Higher Education. You know what? I could find it out. I could find out doing a little Googling, but I can't tell you off the top of my head exactly which college said that. But that's a good question. All right, somebody else asked, hi again, I am a freshman in high school studying in a British school here in Dubai. I have done extensive research on studying at a US university. However, I am unsure about when I will take the SAT or ACT. Is there a specific year that I should take the test? Yes, there is. If you're currently a freshman, the biggest thing you can do right now to improve your chances of getting into a university in the US is take the hardest classes you can and do the best that you can. Study for the SAT in the summer between your sophomore and junior year, and take the test in the fall of junior year or the spring of junior year. You can always take the tests again in the summer before senior year or at the very latest fall of senior year, but that's cutting it close. Don't worry about the SAT or ACT now because you haven't learned all the material yet. So just rock your classes, and then that's the best thing you can do as a freshman to prepare. Hope that helps. My email address is up here on the screen. I encourage you to send me an email if you have any questions at all. I'm happy to help. If there are no more questions, I am going to sign off. Oh, wait, I have another one. Great, I love questions. This question asks, since I am following a GCSE curriculum, I can't select the hardest classes. However, I'm part of a further maths accelerated course. Does it help? Yes, it does help. Yes, further maths is definitely a hard class. When I said take the hardest classes, I just mean colleges like to see you challenge yourself. So you don't have to always take the hardest with a capital H, but don't cheese out and take like the easiest classes that your school will allow you to take. That's doing you a disservice. That's what I meant by that. Okay, I'll give you guys another minute if you have any questions. All right. If you do have any questions, shoot me an email. I am happy to respond. Until then, thank you guys for coming. And yeah, stay safe out there. Thanks.